Welcome to Malvern Books. Thank you for coming tonight. My goodness, what a crowd. This is awesome. I am so glad to see all of you, and I'll just start by introducing the poets. We're so happy and proud to be able to say we have Miriam Bird Greenberg and Donika Kelly here tonight. Just such a special reading, and so nice to see everybody here. So we're going to start with Miriam. Miriam Bird Greenberg's In the Volcano's Mouth won the 2015 Agnes Lynch Starrett Prize and was written with the support of fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center, and the Poetry Foundation. Former Wallace Stegner Fellow, she teaches creative writing and ESL in the San Francisco Bay Area, though she has also crossed the continent aboard freight trains as a hitchhiker and by bicycle. She is currently working on an expansive, unwieldy ethnographic poetry project while you're on the bicycle.
Either are going very well.
Yeah. Documenting asylum seekers and economic migrants living in Hong Kong's Chungking mansions. Miriam?
I didn't think of a single clever thing to say, and I'm somebody who has to actually plan the clever things I say before I stand up. But I'm so glad to see so many people who I love and admire and have missed and have wanted to gather all in one place. I should do this more. I'm going to read some poems, and I'm going to figure out what time it is so that I don't read for 1,000 hours. Okay. I'm going to read some poems and try not to stop and explain myself in between. Would You Believe, which takes place 3 blocks from the Cypress Freeway in Oakland, which collapsed in the '89 Loma Prieta earthquake. And there's a line by my friend Sue. We climbed from the mouth of a volcano all year. The year I moved west with my sweetheart to live 3 blocks from where the earth had broken open. Men in the Acorn Project remembered pulling strangers trapped in their cars to safety. Brother, one had told me, he'd said, "We can be afraid of each other again tomorrow." 20 years passed. They'd made good on their promise. By then, I waited weekly in a food line alongside Chinese immigrant women who fished plastic bottles from the trash, eyes roving for a coin, a lost prize at the curb. Sometimes I'd lift my hand to the lip, look out over the volcano's rim, and there, in a crevice, a scrap of paper shining, someone's private prayer or prophecy. Everybody held out hope, tended their small hustle. Women knocked on the door selling broken-heeled shoes, low pots picked in an abandoned yard, would try the knob if no one was home. Could I make change for a 20, asked someone, unfolding one she'd manufactured from a dollar bill. Would you believe what lengths I went to call myself happy then? Star of blood that blooms beneath a bruised fingernail, star of silence left high in the heart of a room after the doors slammed. A couple sits, watching one another's reflections in a mirror. The two talk like this as evening falls around them, and neither has the heart to get up and turn on the light. My body's here, but no one's in it, writes a friend. For me, it's different. I'd spent my childhood in a house made of bees. On hot day, honey dripped through cracks in the ceiling. Me, I hummed, coiled tight. It hadn't been long since I'd slept in a creosote field, while grainers crashed in a switchyard nearby. Actual tumbleweeds turned like prayer wheels crossing the tracks, and the constellations coyotes called to, streaked across the night, were more miraculous than freckles in the face of God. Around then, hitchhiking past Death Valley, a pair of truckers stopped for me. I used to haul cattle to LAX, one said, but I couldn't take looking into their mournful eyes anymore. I guess I wear my heart on my sleeve, he said. They were climbing through the Sierras to pick up a load of honey, telling jokes. They both had wild white beards. I hadn't yet come in my life to peer over the lip of a volcano. I wasn't yet made of a cicada's coils and timbrel. Still, I carried a bit of string, a kipu I used for eavesdropping on the passage of time. If someone had put a knife in my hands, even then, I'd have taken it. I can hear two birds quarreling, tangled in midair. I'm afraid one day I'll find myself trash picking, tearing corners from a 20. I'm afraid I'm no longer lost as the runaway I met, hopping a train out of Colton that summer, who carried a small jar of her own baby teeth with her in her pack. This one is called Ophidia, and so the first half of these are poems of my years of recreational vagrancy, I suppose. Which I hope we're not over yet. If you ever see me on the corner asking for $1, it's for research purposes. I'm probably not kidding. So this, the constellation Ophiuchus is said to represent, I'm just reading from this paragraph, represent a man in the coils of a snake, and though both the celestial equator and the ecliptic pass through it, it's not counted among the signs of the zodiac. The days were already burning when we crossed the river east towards Quartzsite, mini mall of rock hounds and geode hunters, small-time gamblers in the flea market of open sky. We slept out on BLM land amid a colony of rubber tramps in the desert, nothing but nebula to watch for, dark matter fallen from under the eyelids of stars. Out here, our Ophiuchus was made of serrate and spike, or had a venomous bite. It held the dark in its mouth, limp as a mammal holding a smaller animal, might slip unseen past someone with a 12 gauge, pockets rattling with shells as the teeth of a coyote rattle in their sockets, when its skin, suntanned, peels back at the places insects no longer swarm. I gave food to a man I saw sleeping in a gully by the dunes, who seemed to speak no language at all. 3 days later, I found him walking a highway that crossed a cleft in the mountains, and our faces lit to see each other. "Do you need anything?" I asked. "Water, a little money?" No, he shook his head gleefully. He was on his way to Houston for a check. He'd be back for another the next month, and his dead brother's unclaimed disability pay was waiting already in a P.O. box in Palm Desert. The day meted out its veil of heat, shimmering over the blacktop, singing on the rails of train tracks that ran gleaming beside us in the sun. How can one lonesome ghost, I wondered, spin his own rope to repel us, in the end, into the underworld, and keep himself well enough fed on bread and sardines at once? Somewhere, a man is picking birdshot from meat. Somewhere, he's catching moths in his two-cupped hands. The flame of a match that flares at the tip of his cigarette before he draws in his breath deepens the darkness that falls just beyond his illuminated face. Can you all hear me? Mm-hmm. Yep. Reno, you're making, is that a symbol? Okay, good to know. This one is called Westbound, and this is where I hazard over explaining things. When you catch a train, often the crew changes at the same time roughly every day, and so you'll often see like graffiti written on, under a bridge or on walls or whatever, just basically offering the sort of Lonely Planet guide to how to catch a train out of this particular train yard. And so it references that. It also meant, the term westbound, though, also, which is the initial reference, also refers to somebody dying and catching the westbound. Whiskey Lakes and Cigarette Trees, you may know from the folk song Big Rock Candy Mountain, which is much more fucked up and sinister than you might have initially heard. And Tokay is not the fancy wine, it is white port mixed with lemon juice. Westbound. Up from Denver, we idled 3 days in Cheyenne as children killed each other on screen at the Dollar Theater. Here, the height of summer, someone had inscribed "Westbound crew change every night at 9" on an abandoned building's wall. To catch the westbound is to leave this life for whiskey lakes and cigarette trees, a hobo utopia, anyone drunk on Tokay by a jungle fire, worth nothing but 1,000-mile paper between them and the train's eternal bone shake, might glimpse in the switchbacks. Even newcomers who haunt the firelight's edge know someone who's died or gone close. Me, I know Brian, who lost his leg, lived because the workers who found him bleeding on the ballast made tourniquets of their clothes. Or the woman I met trying to catch a train to Bakersfield in time for a procedure she wouldn't name. She'd been there last with her boyfriend, a kid called Freddie. He'd been busted there before, heard the yard was hotter now, that the bull took leave of his shitty Chevy to give chase on foot if the spirit so moved him, which is unheard of. Freddie had a warrant out already, so he bailed from his double stack, saw the Amtrak an instant before it hit him, and yelled back to his girlfriend, "Don't jump." The yard workers posted her bond, paid off the pound for her brindled pup, gathered up his body, made of nothing they could name but meat, his family estranged, and swore they'd call the rail cops on every rider they saw, just to hope they could say they'd seen someone killed by a train once, only once. The promised land, pursued, it ducks, doubles back. I've glimpsed it between trains thundering past on either side of me in the freight yards at night, or on the highway with my thumb out in the rain, and more than once slept in a truck stop lounge with my hood pulled low over my face. One August, I followed the ripening blackberries up the coast, swam at night in the cold ocean, and woke wreathed in seaweed's black tongues. Everyone knows what happens to women who hitchhike, constantly trying a door to that other world made of lake bottom or low forest, abandoned house even wild animals have rejected. They should have known better, as though the perimeter of knowing ends with womanhood. And yet, this never happened to me. Once I crossed Washington State in 9 rides. 6 were solitary women, and each time, the very act of reaching across the empty passenger seat to unlock the door for me was a benediction. Oh, next. Wait, I made all these notes, but there's too many humans. Oh, heaven and earth. Heaven and earth are made in the orchard, where a young man who hauls lumber to job sites in town since high school puts down his tools, and a young man with his breasts bound inside his shirt shakes a smoke with trembling fingers from his pack, and the two eye each other with a kind of affection they can't disclose. Every measure of time means something more. Hair grows long, is shorn. Laid end to end, one could knot together a tightrope to the moon. Heckled for being a dyke. Learn your slurs, he yells, or wishes he could. He's ready to call another place home. Cayenne colors the doorways here, dims to rust until the ants again don't mind, begin to retrace their paths at fading dust. What calendar left on the sills and red pepper's receding heat marks the years some of us grew up, some left. The skin hidden beneath clothes, what wonder it contains. Here, 2 who fear could turn to enemies. Instead, they touch each other with a tenderness other men might shy from. The pact neither needs to make aloud. There comes a last time for mending, for sharpening a shovel's blade to dig through roots. Each seed left unharvested breaks open, sends out its small claim on the soil. Look out over the hillside stitched by bees. Dowsers pace the pastures in search of unseen rivers the drought can't shake. Kitchen counters teem again with sugar ants. Someday they'll remember a time in the orchard, will turn in their nest of bedding to the person they've woken beside for 30 years. My first time a carload of guys careened past, they might say, and called out faggot at me. It was involuntary, the stitch of breath that rose in my bound chest. Familiarity, the dark animal of my unconscious, warming to hear a sound that felt so much like home. Oh, let's see. To change tack a little bit, I passed 3 girls killing a goat. I passed 3 girls killing a goat. Shotgun leaned up against a tree, and the entrails spilling in coils on the ground. It was hooked between the tendons of its back legs to a high branch that gently creaked like a dried hinge busybody aunties wouldn't oil. Blood drained into a pail. You could smell it shifting with the air, and black flies landed in the shadows of things where the wind didn't touch. I dreamed I was carrying a sack filled with animals, and it dragged blood in the gravel and stained my skirt hem. You could follow my trail to the county line, where old men sat on the liquor store porch. One crooked his half arm for the bottle where the auger had caught his hand. I dreamed I was in a new country, rinsing livers under a spigot, and the men cracking black walnuts on a stone named my limbs like the weather, like none of us knew the same words. By the tree, the girls on the goat were faltering. One squatted to sharpen her blackened blade on a strop, and the men on the county line leaned back on the legs of their chairs, talking about anything, each other, spring weather, the long-haired boy scalped by a combine. One of them swore, "You only plant beans with the moon in Capricorn, otherwise the fields choke up with scrub juniper." One looked intently at his left palm. His right wrist uselessly brushed the woven seat of his chair. When a wind came, the screen door leapt up on its leather hinges, which never creaked, and slammed shut. Mud daubers in the muck by the spigot blew sideways around my ankles. And inside, I could hear the woman who lived with the liquor store proprietor cursing as she locked up the vanilla, like she knew how to break the back of a ghost. All right, I think my time is probably expired. I have one last poem. in the most gracious thing, I'll take another. After I die, I am reborn as an animal that breaks into dental clinics long after sundown to suck laughing gas from its dark mask. I'm reborn as an animal that keeps watch on the liquor store until the lights flick off, or later. The animal that sings its ballads to the cattails, which is the same animal whose hands close over the shape of baby birds in low nests. This is an animal that carries a gold-rimmed teacup and kisses the ravenous night with all its teeth before sinking them into the leg of its benefactor. Among the cemetery with its lonesome chill, the animal made of shadow has touched the breast of a woman who laid down with the dead. This animal picks names from the phone book and sleeps very lightly beneath their window or waits late for a cigarette, and its smoke drifts into their dreams. Once there was an animal just like this who was left newly born in a box on the steps of a temple in an old country, and the priest blessed it in a bath of milk and made it jump through the fire. The animal came to glitter like pyrite. The animal shivered like gold flecking the stones of a chilly river. The animal was caused by a minor devil to stumble, and for that it was cast off like the disheveled skin of a spirit. In slumber, the animal set out for its fortune, and in slumber came to a farm where animals were slaughtered. Needing food, he asked for a job. To pull a blade through the feathers of an animal, to pour out its blood as if from the mouth of a bottle, and blanch it, and put handfuls of its feathers into a bag, coarsely, like paper money of no remaining value. Then cut open its small chest, where the organs glisten like jewels in their shawl of blood. The animal may go on doing this. The animal is accustomed to count discreetly, to curry small favor, to stop for its bottle hidden in an abandoned bunker somewhere, and to drink it there in peace if it can. The animal's soul is contained in a separate vessel. Thank you so much.